Singapore might be regulating bribe bosses, but how do other countries do it? Watch on because it might not be what you think it is. So, Liz, you have spent the last few days buried under your relative questions of
where is your boyfriend?
Or
when are you having kids?
And didn't read the news. Here's a brief recap of the news about Singapore regulating bribe bosses. Now, if you are thinking that tomorrow bribe bosses will be banned, no guys, not how the laws in Singapore work. Laws are proposed as bills in Parliament, and when it's voted in, it will become law. In this case, it might be amendments of current laws, but it works the same. This process usually takes a long time. You see, what happened is that the Hougang MP posed a parliamentary question asking the coordinating Minister for National Security and Minister for Home Affairs whether the government intends to legislate mandatory and standardized disclosure of odds and probability ranges for bribe bosses or gacha products sold in Singapore. Well, the coordinating Minister for National Security and Minister for Home Affairs, Mr. K Shanmugam, replied, and it turned out that this has been in the works. He said in his reply that the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Gambling Regulatory Authority had studied this issue and have decided to introduce regulations stipulating the conditions under which bribe bosses may be offered and to better manage gambling inducement risks. The regulations are being drafted. The member's suggestion to have mandatory and standardized odds and probability disclosure will be among the points that will be considered for the regulations. Basically, he's saying that they're looking to propose laws about bribe bosses. And if you live in Singapore long enough, you'll know that when Singapore proposes a law, it's like Tan Zhiwei proposing to Gong Bilang with a BTO. So, this means what happens when Tan Zhiwei proposed to Gong Bilang with BTO? Confirm plus chop lah. This means it will be some time before we see the new laws. However, here's something you likely did not know. Technically, as of now, there's already some kind of law about bribe bosses in Singapore. This regulation is mainly about prices in recreational centres though. Since 1st March 2024, the value of prices in recreational centres like arcades or fun fairs must not be over $100. Because let's face it, if the amount is too high, it feels more like gambling than a recreational game. And here's the thing, this includes bribe bosses as the prizes. So essentially, the value of the bribe boss items in these recreational centres should not be over $100. But since Labubu and most, if not all, bribe bosses have values of less than $100, it doesn't really affect us, although the regulations are there. But before we move on, you need to know the difference between physical bribe bosses and digital bribe bosses. Today's sponsor is Creeper's Barber. Tired of reaching the barber shop and your favorite barber isn't there? Want to look good for your date, but you cannot because there's a long queue and your hair now looks like a mop. Time for a haircut at Creeper's Barber. Yes, it's a vibrant barber shop you see everywhere, and they are bringing the barber shop into the 21st century. This means no more reading old comic books while you wait for your haircut. In Creeper's Barber, you will not have to wait hours to get a trim or a buzz cut. Now, you can book an appointment with your favorite barber directly from your phone. You can check your barber's schedule, book your appointment, and skip the night entirely. Download the Creeper's Barber app today. The app link is in the description, or you can scan the QR code here. Now, back to the video. Technically speaking, bribe bosses or loot bosses can be either physical bosses like Labubus or in-game loot bosses like a person buying an in-game loot box that might contain extra lives or new armor. This is the reason why the Hougang MP specifically asked about bribe boss or gacha products, as bribe bosses are usually meant for physical bosses while gacha is digital. But since the term bribe bosses are used interchangeably, this might cause some confusion. In addition, while bribe bosses can be rather destructive to your wallets, gacha could be worse. After all, for bribe bosses like Labubus or Pokemon cards, you have to head to a store and buy them. Gacha can be purchased within seconds while you are playing the game, and very often, the game is designed to manipulate you into buying it, like ending a session right when you are on an endorphin high, pushing you to make impulsive, emotional purchases. What makes it worse is that your credit card or your parents' credit card is already saved in the system, making it all too easy to spend money without a second thought. Now, for simplicity's sake, we will just use the term bribe bosses for both physical bribe boss and gacha. So now you know the difference, you must be wondering, are other countries regulating bribe bosses? Well, it turns out that regulating bribe bosses isn't new because other countries have done it. So, let's look at what other countries are doing, as we might be taking a leaf out from their book. Surprisingly, the country with one of the most restrictive bribe boss regulations is China. Yeah, the country whereby Labubu comes from. Since 2017, game publishers must review the probability for the loot box rewards in their games. And there's even the capped daily purchase of 50 bosses per day. In 2022, Shanghai started to regulate physical bribe bosses as well, setting a 200 yen, about 37 Singapore dollars, advisory price cap, a ban on sales to children under 8, and also probability disclosure. The entire China then faced these regulations from 2023. Over in South Korea, it's more towards was digital bribe bosses. Since March 2024, game providers must disclose the type of each loot box and the probability of obtaining each item, and they have been actively enforcing these rules. In other regions like Europe, Australia, and several other countries, the focus has largely been on digital loot boxes, with numerous court cases already setting precedents. So here's a quick summary. There are quite a few regulations on digital bribe bosses around the world, and the key requirements are always the same. Review the probability and restrict sales to minors. How this will pan out in Singapore remains to be seen, but I do have one question. By the time the law takes effect, will bribe bosses even still be a thing? Well, maybe yes, because at the end of the day, it was never about the bribe boss itself. It's a psychological trick designed to make people buy with emotion instead of logic. We do have bribe bosses back in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. Watch this and you'll understand. Thank you for spending almost 6 minutes with me. I really appreciate it and hope you learned something.